Time now for Perspective. In today's edition, we look at France's soft power push into Africa and the changing role of sustainable development there. This week, French President Emmanuel Macron made a three-day tour into the continent. He told France 24 and our sister radio station RFI that migration is, quote, one of the greatest political challenges today. And he also called for a contemporary vision of the continent. Other key issues during his visit were security, terrorism, and regional as well as international cooperation. He also helped unveil numerous projects alongside our guest today, Rémy Rioux, the CEO of the French Development Agency. Thank you very much for coming in to speak to us today. I want to begin with this idea of a soft diplomatic push into Africa. Macron, I think this is his 8th time to visit Africa since he's become president. And he said the future of the world will largely be played out in Africa. How would you describe this push or this charm offensive?
There's a loop between the transformation of France and its international action, all connected. And so I was for 3 days with President Macron, especially in Nigeria, and he had two messages. One, we have to take the full measure of Africa. And of course, Nigeria is the size of Brazil in terms of population, and Africa as a whole has the size of India in terms of demographics and economics. So he had this message on let's consider Africa as a region and its measure. And also, of course, he tries to connect, as in France, with African youth. So that's the reason why we went to the shrine. So the Fela Kuti musical club in a very active, vibrant place in Lagos. We had a very large meeting with 1,000 entrepreneurs with Tony Elumelu, one of the main businessmen in Nigeria. And then afterwards, we explored the linkages between sports and development with the partnership we have with the NBA now, between NBA and AFD. Always with the same idea. We have to rest on African youth, we have to trust them, and we have to connect with France and Europe.
Yeah, and we're seeing the images there of the French president at that nightclub. Not a typical place for a head of state to go.
No.
And that's what he's saying. He wants a contemporary vision of Africa. Can you tell us a bit about what the French Development Agency, the AFD, does and why you were on that visit with?
Well, we are the oldest development institution in the world, born 1941 in London, 77 years ago, 3 years before the World Bank itself. And we work to be the youngest and to connect with these people. 10 billion euro, more than 10 billion euro financing a year, so very significant financial size and significantly growing in the years to come, following the vision of President Macron, active in many sectors, 50% in Africa, 50% on climate, 50% dealing with private sector, NGOs, local authorities. So quite an agile institution, pushing to create links between France and the rest of the world.
What are the challenges in doing that? You're so active in Africa, and there are some repressive governments there. How do you deal with those regimes when you're trying to help aid workers or the local population?
I think the challenge is we have to change our view. I mean, it's no longer about aid. I think it's all about investment, a new type of investment. But that's what people in Africa and elsewhere are expecting of us, to engage, to invest ourselves in the development of their country. And this is what we are doing. And this is a challenge. And we have to fight here in France. We have to fight in the north to change the perception of what is happening. I'm heading a very large club that is called IDFC, International Development Finance Club, gathering the 23 largest financial institutions. 20 of them are from the south, so BNDES in Brazil, China Development Bank in China, DBSA in South Africa, Caisse des Dépôts et Gestion in Morocco, and all these institutions, now they are beginning to cooperate very concretely, co-invest, and that's what development now is about.
You're building these sort of coalitions with a number of banks, as you mentioned. There's also sports is becoming an increasing part of the AFD. This partnership you mentioned earlier with the National Basketball Association, America's Professional Basketball League. Tell us why sports is such an important development.
Well, maybe it sounds surprising to have a very public, very old institutions like AFD partnering with, well, very American, very for-profit institutions, but it's not so strange, because we have to connect with African youth. We have to talk to them, and you know the power of basketball, of football, of sports.
International appeal.
Match this afternoon, and we have also to scale up the initiatives that these players are doing, especially in their own country. And so we have to try. We never tried actually to connect large sports institutions, sportsmen, sportswomen, and development finance institutions like AFD with their financial power. And this is exactly what we did in Lagos with the president. We commit $6 million each, the NBA and AFD, to try to touch 5 million African youngsters and put sports in our development project, education, urban development, nutrition, post-conflict. So key countries where we'll intervene together in the continent.
And quickly, on that project, it mentions that you hope that this joint partnership will raise awareness about sustainable development, touching on issues like education, social inclusion, gender equality. Can you give us a concrete example how it can do that?
Well, we are working in the center of Johannesburg. We are investing. You know, it was somehow decayed for a time, and so the idea is just to put basketball courts in this vast program in the center of Johannesburg. And when you have these basketball courts, of course, you can have NGOs come in, you can have education programs to talk to youngsters, and you can also help them insert in the job market. So that's really the idea.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to have to leave it there. Rémy Rioux from the French development agency AFD on the public-private partnerships changing sustainable development in Africa.